Let's find out how easy it is for buried monuments to be hidden in plain sight as natural phenomena. You start to realize everything they've taught us about ancient history is just a cope. Here are just a few archaeological sites from around the world before they were excavated and after. This is the pyramid of Teotihuacan in Mexico. Before they dug it up in the 1900s, it looked like this. Just an oddly shaped hill, kind of like those hills in China. They promise us are just hills and definitely not pyramids. Or the hidden pyramid of the sun in Bosnia, which again they insist is just a hill. And if you think otherwise, you're a fraud and a con artist. Here is the pyramid of Teotihuacan today, one of the largest structures in all of Mesoamerica. Once a totally natural hill, now a sprawling complex of stone megastructures that we still have no idea who or how they were even built. Anyone who claims they know is just coping. Here's another before and after of the same structure, also known as the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, and it literally just looked like a grassy hill. Even all of these smaller structures laying around the main pyramid were all completely buried underground. An entire ancient city complex hidden as a natural geological formation for hundreds of years. And it seems like our entire world is built on top of sites like these. Like the Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico as well, which barely even resembled a hill, just a natural outcropping of the ground pre-excavation. That later turned out to be the biggest known pyramid in the world by sheer volume. It may not look like it, but it's an absolute chode, insanely wide at almost half a kilometer at its base. Now, the hidden Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia would be bigger if it turned out to be a pyramid, but no, that's fake. Don't look at that. That one's just a hill, remember? The world-famous Chichen Itza looked just like a rickety little mud hut on top of a mound before it was fully uncovered as one of the greatest pyramids of the Mayan civilization. Same with the Temple of the Great Jaguar in Tikal in Guatemala. At first, just a little stub sticking out from the jungle overgrowth, and of course, a whole-ass pyramid underneath. If monuments like these are this hidden after just a couple hundred years, imagine how much more they'd be after a few thousand. Here's before and after the excavation of an ancient Greek stadium, which kinda just looked like an empty field that slightly dipped inwards before the rows of seats and central playing area were fully revealed. The Temple of Artemis in Turkey, only 2 pillars barely visible before more were excavated and an entire courtyard uncovered beneath. The Ephesus Theater didn't even remotely resemble anything man-made, just the most natural looking hill I've ever seen. And lo and behold, laying under it was a massive ancient theater complex, complete with a center stage, rows of seats, pillars, stairs, the whole 9 yards. This is an ancient library from the Hellenistic era, again initially just 2 small pillars, turned out to be an entire foundation of a building and even more sprawling remains all around it, all buried underground. This other theater in Turkey, you could kinda tell there was something going on under here, but never would you imagine it would be another courtyard this massive. Speaking of Turkey, we of course have the world famous Göbekli Tepe, which was completely invisible before unveiling the oldest known ancient site in the world, at over 12,000 years old, utterly shattering our mainstream understanding of history. And now the elites at the WEF and other mainstream archaeologists are doing everything they can to downplay it and make sure it stays hidden. For real, that's actually happening. Not a conspiracy, I even made a video on it, check it out after if you want. Here's the Ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, which again just looked like an oddly shaped mound with suspicious looking edges and angles before it was dug out, revealing quite possibly the most significant monumentous structure in all of Mesopotamia. Kinda looked like something you'd see in, I don't know, Utah or the Grand Canyon, but those are definitely just natural formations, oh 100%. Or the underwater Yonaguni monument off the coast of Japan, which is clearly just a natural geological phenomenon. Yeah, I know, that's literally what they say it is, and somehow we're the crazy ones. Of course, the Sphinx, being in Egypt, was covered up to its shoulders in sand prior to excavation. This one was admittedly a lot more visible as there aren't any trees or plant coverage in the desert like there is in the Amazon, which tends to completely bury man-made structures after only a few years, and is also kind of the reason the most well-known, commonly studied ancient civilizations are almost always in the desert. Not necessarily because that's where they all came from, but simply because it's easier to spot buried sites in the sand than it is in the jungle. Like Machu Picchu, which was practically entirely covered with plant overgrowth before, like you couldn't even see anything there, only to reveal a sprawling village of structures, buildings, walls, and walkways beneath the foliage, all on top of a mountain no less. Really makes you think what else is hidden out there and what else they're promising us are just natural formations when we've barely even grazed the tip. Like, if all of these were this hidden before getting excavated, what makes us insist on knowing that these aren't? Cope harder in the comments if you disagree.